Welcome to the Christie Taylor Show here inside the Taylor Tilton Hour. I'm your host, Christie Taylor, and I am geeked about today's show. For those who really know me, beyond media and my love of music, I love films. So I'm super excited to bring our special guest here today, and he's straight from the 901. We're talking about author, filmmaker, Robert RIPP Parker. RIPP Entertainment Films was established in 2014 by Mr. Robert L. Parker III. The name RIPP came from a childhood nickname and other businesses he had previously created, RIPP Records and RIPP Records in Entertainment. Mr. RIPP starred in the national TV series Wife Swap in 2010, along with his family for one season. Some years prior, he had written his first movie, The Awakening of a Troubled Mind, in 1996 as a storybook, and changed the name to A Troubled Mind after receiving distribution from Maverick Entertainment in 2015. From there, he started creating movies every year, which went to 3 movies a year. Now in 2022, he has released over 13 movies located on 32 digital channels worldwide, including Peacock, Tubi, Amazon, Popcorn Flicks, Vudu, Plato Television, Crackle, and many, many more. I want you to help me welcome to the Christie Taylor Show, the one, the only, RIPP. That's how we call him here in the M-Town. Hey, RIPP.
How you doing?
I'm doing really, really well. And as I said, for those who know me, I love film. And of course, we'll get into some of my own film escapades. But can you give those who want to understand where the RIPP came from? That's a childhood name. How did that came about?
RIPP came from a friend who gave me a number, who gave me a name. I was just walking around the house when I was young. He's like, "RIPP, come here. RIPP, do this. RIPP, do this." And the name just stuck with me. And I decided to use the name when I first released my first book. And so, I love the name so much, it just stayed with the name, just stayed with me. So I said, that's going to be my nickname.
Wow. And I love the fact that, RIPP this. And of course, you are the third. So you have some legacy with you. How do you honor your family's name? Because with you being the third, is this something filmmaking and writing, is that in your blood?
Yes, my family, my whole entire family is like everybody has some type of talent that they do, whether it's music or writing or anything. So the whole entire family is talented, and I got it from the rest of my family, my uncles and things like that. So I just put it to work.
Well, I love that. Now, speaking about family, I understand that you have been involved in some television shows, Wife Swap being one, and your family was included. You got to tell me, how did that happen? How did that happen?
Now that happened. Me and my wife was pushing my son, Christian Parker, was little Chris. He was like 7 years old. We was pushing him since he was 5 doing music, and they found out about him in New York, and they called me one day. I was on a route in my truck, and I was like, really, like, we want you all to do a Wife Swap reality show. We found out about your son, Lil Chris, and we want to do one on a young hip hop artist. And I was like, are y'all joking? And then when they told me how much they were going to pay me, I was like, this is real. I went and told my wife, and she was like at first, no, I'm not doing that. And I was like, we got to do this. We got to do this.
Now, Wife Swap was really a big thing, like you said, in the around 2010. You did a full season. Kind of give me some of the highlights from that season.
Oh, the season. Oh, my God. We had to go find a Bigfoot monster. We had to drive all the way to Falk, Arkansas, 4 hours away. We had cameras in the house 24/7 from 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. Had 5 people in my house, and I just got so tired of it. Like, y'all can go home. It's just people in my house every morning from morning. But you know what? They treated us very nice. We had a assistant. Everybody had an assistant. They did anything we wanted them to get. Got you anything you wanted. I mean, it was a really, really great experience.
Now, who were you swapped with? Who was the other family?
We swapped with a family called the Robinsons, and they lived in some part of Florida. My wife had to go to Florida and stay with her husband, and the wife had to come stay with me. And that was like a great experience. I was like, oh man, this is crazy.
Now, of course, you were doing it all for the exposure of your son, Chris. How did he benefit from this wife's swap season?
He benefited a great, a lot off of it. It actually got him. He actually won the, I think the hip hop, BT hip hop stage performance. Went down to New York and performed. And he got signed through Sony when he was young, like he was like 7 years old. And we was on the road doing a whole lot of shows with Jermaine Dupri and Franchise Boys, and I mean, we had fun. Went to New York with Cat Williams and a whole lot of more folks. Had fun.
Now, of course, that really laid the way for you to be connected to the industry. Because one thing about if you're in Memphis, first of all, we have some of the most immensely talented people in the whole world. But oftentimes you don't have the opportunity to put your talent on Spotlight or on the national stage. So with you doing that, how did you start transferring those relationships and people that you were meeting into what you're doing now?
Well, everything that I learned in music, because I had a record label and I had a lot of artists on my label and I had my own studio, everything I learned from that taught me on what I need to do now. Because software and all this stuff right there, I learned how to edit. I learned how to run cameras and things like that. It actually taught me a whole lot of what I know now. And so doing the music kind of paved the way for me into doing movies.
Now, of course, you wrote a book. And tell me about that book and how you decided to turn it into a movie.
I wrote that book when I was doing stage plays back in college at Chevy State Community College. And it had like 3 different names before I came up with the name I wanted. And I wanted to do a screenplay off it a long time ago, and I never did get to it. So after my son Chris started playing basketball, I went back to it, and I decided to do a book on it. I did desktop publishing on it. So I did the book, and we actually did a young lady wrote the screenplay on it for me, and we turned that screenplay. I hired a couple of guys to do the movie for me, and we turned that book into a movie, and then we turned around and took it to Maverick.
You took me back when you said Shelby State, and for those who are new to Memphis, Southwest Tennessee Community College has had a lot of names. We can go back to State Tech, and then of course Shelby State. So you were in theater at Shelby State back in the day.
Mm-hmm. I was in theater.
Was that with Dr. Levi Frazier?
I was Ron Giphart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was one of my directors, and I had another director, and I used to do stage plays. And you know what? And the lady director that I had, I can't remember her name. She told me, she said, "You are gonna do good in this." She said, "You're gonna be big in this industry." Watch her. She said, "Because you are so good at learning lines and teaching people on stage when they forget their words." She said, "You're gonna do good," and she was right. She's right.
Wow. So being able to take your theater, because actually a lot of people don't know, I have an undergrad in theater, drama, TV, and film performance from Oral Roberts University. So I've always had an immense love for the stage. Broadway was my truest ambition, but radio found me in college, and I fell in love with radio. And, here we are still doing media. But also when it comes to theater, a lot of people don't know that there is a difference between the cadence of theater and film. And some people can't make that switch, but you were able to. So tell me, what did you do to groom yourself for the cinema?
Well, what I did, the difference in stage is like you have to learn the whole entire play for 2 hours straight without messing up. And but what I learned from it, I learned from the script part of staging. When I got my script from the staging, I learned the exterior, interior. I learned all that stuff as for the script, but I didn't know how to write the script. Okay. But I learned all that. I remember those things from that, and that's when I started writing. And when I learned how to turn it to a screenplay, I learned from that. So actually, transition from stage play to filming features is tough because your voice tone is not as high in film as it is, and you have to learn how to talk low when you're doing filming. So it's different.
Yeah, I remember when there was a big rush, when there was a lot of Black plays on the road, and I know when Tyler and Master P and Ice Cube them started moving, I'll say grassroots, the resurgence of grassroots filmmaking, and you could see who had been former stage plays actors, because they oftentimes didn't know how to have the intimacy that the camera demands. But it is so beautiful to see the growth that I would say from the 1990s until now that we've had in Black film. And everybody's an expert. Everybody has a camera now. Everybody can do a short film and a web.
Yes. Yes.
What's your take on the resurgence? Because of course, back in the, there have been different chapters even when film first started. But definitely, I think this dispensation of time, Black film and Black television has boomed like never before. What are some of your insights into it in the last 20 years?
My insights in the last 20 years that I think a lot of people, I think the growth is just coming from watching somebody else do it, and then they want to do the same thing, and then they merge to doing that. So everybody, wanted to figure out what to do with a camera. When you pick up a camera, what you do, how to use it and things like that. So they see this individual using the camera. They want to know how they get this far using this camera, what they do. So they merge to doing that. But I learned from YouTube how to use a camera.
You better break it down from YouTube University, because so many people have sworn by YouTube. Now I'm on there right now learning some things, and you're right. It's a vast amount of information. What were some of your favorite channels on YouTube where you really gained a lot of insight?
Well, I didn't have any specific channels. What I did, I looked up like certain cameras, and I said I was trying to figure out what camera to use. Should I use this camera? My first camera was a if I can remember, Canon.
A Canon.
Canon 70D was my first camera.
Okay.
And I love that camera, but it was a 1080. And I was like, I got to get at this 1080. Get this 1080. I got to get the 4K. So what I did, I jumped to 4K and got, jumped to Sony. I jumped to another camera first, though. But I went to YouTube University, and I learned what camera to buy and what to use. And I went from there. So when I started upgrading, I go back to YouTube and I said, what's the camera that everybody's talking about? What's the industry camera, the cheapest industry camera you can use? So I look at the specific camera, and then I go buy the camera, but I learn the camera first before I buy it. And then I go back.
That's smart. That's so smart, Rip. I like that. Okay, I want to roll it back to when it comes to filmmaking, and you're talking about the intimacy that is different from performing on stage, and you're talking about the camera. Now let's talk about that Canon, because the Canon is a beautiful camera for both still photography and filming. It is a beautiful entryway into filmmaking. So if someone's watching this right now, like, well, I can't jump to actually 4Ks have even cheapened over the last decade, but
yes.
Let's talk about that Canon and how that can be a great friend to a budding filmmaker.
Yeah, the Canon 70D is a great camera as far as filming. A lot of people still use it. I recommend that camera over any other camera because right now the Canon is still around. There's a Canon 4K. That's a really great camera that you can use too. But the Canon 70D 1080, you can almost not tell the quality is not 4K by using the 70D. You cannot tell it. You cannot tell that if it's 1080. I mean,
right.
If you're using the Canon 70D, because that camera has so much great quality to it, and I kept that camera for a while before I moved to 4K because it was a great camera.
Okay, for those, we're going to get a little techie because, like I said, my undergrad was in drama, TV, and film performance, but I did get a little, into some stage directing and film directing while I was in school. And I have to say, I went back the second time to finish in that degree. Radio and TV was my, as a journalist, was my first love. Well, let me go back. Music is my first love. I don't want my music to feel like I'm cheating on it. Yeah. But music is always my first love. First soprano right here, concert choir right here. But once I really moved into, I guess you could say, performance, when it came to filmmaking, what are some of the things beyond the camera that you found was extremely important for a budding filmmaker who was transitioning from writing and stage into this space? What's some of the learning curves, or do you tell people right now, like, watch out for this?
Well, as far as like you talking about as far as directing and things like that, well, as far as directing, so as far as learning how to direct.
What were some of the things that you really had to learn on your own, as you said, at YouTube University, beyond camera? Because, film is more than just a camera.
You know what? Something that you have to learn how to edit. Editing is something that you gotta already know, almost already know how to do it in order to get into editing. But like I said, I learned editing from using software into music, and I moved over to editing. So editing, you got to learn how to edit when you actually go into the software, putting everything together, how to put the frames together. I didn't go on YouTube and learn that. I learned that just by moving from music over to doing filming.
That's a good lesson right there, because if you are a music producer and you're already familiar with Pro Tools and you then come over into video editing, it's very, very similar, because it's all about putting the story together in a certain sequence. Mm-hmm. And of course, when it came to you shooting your first movie and you were able to get it picked up by a distributor, let's talk about that relationship. How did you pursue that? Because a lot of people, once again, they do this and don't ever get it to platforms. How did you make that happen, Rip?
Well, what I did, I got the information from a friend who's telling me about RIPP Entertainment, and I submitted my film to them. And I still remember that day when they called me and said, "Hey, Robert, how you doing? We want to congratulate you. We want to take your first film in." I was really, really, really shocked and surprised. And I was like, I really, really finna get this film out. And at the time we first started Married back in 2015, we didn't have all these digital channels we was going to. We went to Walmart, Target, and we was in those type of places, online, Walmart, online, Target. So my first film was in Target and Walmart, which is A Troubled Mind, my first book. So from that point on, when I did my second film, I went back to Maverick, and my third film went back to Maverick. So, and I just stayed with them for a while, and we just grew into a great relationship together. And
13 movies now. You have 13 movies now. Let's talk about the consistency from going from one film a year till now 3 movies per year. That's like every quarter you're shooting a film. Yes. Okay. For those who don't understand, that's a lot of pre-production, production, and post-production. So pretty much as soon as you're wrapping up one, you're already starting another one.
Well, actually, I'm past 13 films. I think I lost count. I think I'm at 15 films right now. But it's like, I still have 3 films that haven't even released that I did last year. That's not even out yet.
During 2020, 2021?
It's like, okay, right now I'm filming 5 films this year. I can really sit down for 5 years and still have films coming out. So that's how hard I work, and I just work like that.
Now, first of all, they don't understand you have a trucking company as well. So when are you finding the time to be on the road and shooting 3 to 5 films, Rip?
Everybody asked me the same question. Well, I drive locally for myself, but I'm about to get out the truck and let my son run it, because I told him, I said, I got to get my office and sit down somewhere, because I got too much I got to do. I'm getting extra amount of phone calls, and because a lot of people don't understand what it takes to do a production. It takes a lot to do a production.
Yes.
And they say I make it look easy, but you got scheduling, you got the actors that deal with, you got your staff, you got the editing, you got the location, you got the everything.
That's why I said for you to be doing even 3 films, and now you're talking about 5 films this year. That's like every okay. A typical film, if you're saying 1 movie a quarter, that's like a month for pre-production, probably taking 4 weeks to shoot. And real talk, post-production can last 2 months by itself. Easy. If you depending on how deep and intricate and how long the movie is. So for you to be doing that, you are literally overlapping. Now, as a matter of fact, in 2022, let's talk about, before we get to this wrap up, some of the projects that you can talk about, because one thing I have to tell you all, when you come to film and entertainment, you can't tell everything. So Rip, share what you can about the upcoming films that are going to be shot right here in Memphis with RIPP Entertainment Films.
Okay, right now we're in the process of shooting Queen Angie, which we got Jasmine Lewis from Barbershop 123. She's in this film. And we're shooting that film right now as we speak. And the way we finish real fast, we shoot per location. We got 3 locations, and we shoot everything in 1 location first. So we just shot 1 location. So we're like a third of the film finished already. Okay. So we got 2 more locations left. And so in March, we're writing on a new movie now already, which is called Desert Rose. That movie will start in March, and then we got another movie in August that we already presented. We have presented to Maverick because they tell me one at a time. So I'm like, hey,
wait a minute, you're Maverick has to say slow down. Wow.
I talked to them the other day, and she said, Robert, I forgot you got another film coming out in April. You got some other films we forgot. We lost count.
Wow.
So I got a new film coming out called Sweet Revenge. We filmed that last year. It's coming out in April.
Okay.
And then we still got Unfaithful that hadn't released yet. But we just released Lot Lizards in January, well, early this year. And then we released Deceptive Intentions in December. And those movies was done like a year ago.
Wow. So you're now sitting on movies.
We're sitting on movies. So
okay, now Memphis is starting to really thrive. The same ingenuity that we had when it came to independent music, we are finally getting traction in the last, I'll say 5 years, with that same level of professionalism in the film space. Now, of course, around 2008, you remember I was a co-writer on the movie Insecure that was shot here. Yes. And over the years, I left and came back. And by the time I came back, I'm like, oh, everybody got their cameras now. Everybody, it's like, it was beautiful to see. But in the last 5 years, it's really become very serious. People are like, we want high quality product that can be internationally distributed. So how are you responding to the creatives here who want to be a part of what you're doing? Because we have different camps now. We got camps. We got camps. How can people get involved in what you're doing, particularly for actors, music creators, those who are working below the line, crew? How can they connect with you, Rip?
They connect with me on Facebook at RIPP2. I'm on Instagram at Director Rip. Let's see. I am Director Rip. My website is RIPPentertainmentFilms.com. You can connect to me any kind of way on that. My Gmail is rippentertainment@gmail.com. You can even put my name in Google and Google me, and it's going to pop up. Put in Robert L. Parker, and I'll pop up in Google, and it'll tell you everything that's going on. I'm on IMDb all day long.
All right, and that's Rip with 2 P's, y'all. Yeah, Rip with 2 P's. You gotta make
not one,
not the RIP, but the Rip with the 2 P's. Okay, yeah. So that's how, if you have interest in being in film, an actor, on below the line, crew, cast. What about screenwriters? Because I might need to be calling you up when we get off of here and say, how can you produce one of my screenplays?
Oh yeah, we do that too. Yeah. So we're in the process of doing that. Like we just shot a movie for Criminal Man.
Who was that?
Criminal Man. He's a rapper here in Memphis.
Okay.
he ran with Yo Gotti and all them right there.
Yeah.
So we just shot his movie, finished his movie, and his movie is gonna go through Maverick too. So it's gonna be worldwide too. So they can look for that coming up.
Now, of course, Memphis has a very strong music community here, and I'm glad to hear that you got that music film connection going on. And going back to those who might want to present music in your film, they can also reach out to you through all those ways that he shared. I mean, he went from the email up to the website, y'all. Now, that's somebody trying to do business. Do business. Now, let's talk about the business aspect before we wrap up. How lucrative has it become for you to do these films on such a aggressive schedule as an independent filmmaker?
Well, what it is, I got a full staff. So by having a staff by my side, we're able to get a lot of things done, especially when we're on set. We got a staff of like 6 people. We had camera A, camera B. We got a production manager. We got an assistant manager. We got so we're able to get these things done just with the small crew. I mean, full-fledged. And a lot of people say, how y'all get all that done? We work together collectively, and we do a really, really great job together.
Yeah.
So since we are on the same line and everything, we get to get it done real fast.
You sounding like Tyler Perry.
we are a small Tyler Perry group here. But one thing for the future, what I plan on doing is getting a building and building backlots for our own self. That way we won't have to go out and try to find out where we're gonna get our location, where we're gonna shoot this at. We plan on getting a building and building a backlot with like a house and a store and things like that. The same thing Tyler Perry doing, but you're doing it on a small scale.
Yes. And hopefully you can collaborate with BLP Film Studios as well, as it becomes a reality out there in the Haven. That's White Haven for those who are not from the 901. Super excited. Well, something, Rip, we have observed each other from afar for many, many years. But it's such a pleasure. And I got to give a shout out to Tina Tilton, who's going to be coming up in just a few minutes for making this firm connection. And of course, she's going to be having one of your actresses featured in her show, and just going to give us a little deets again about Jasmine before we wrap up here, and who Tina's going to be talking to. So Jasmine, of course, is going to be here for the current project that you're on. Yes. Name that film again.
Queen Angie.
All right. And is it too late?
She plays the wife of one of the lead actors.
All right. And for those, I know you're in the midst of shooting now, but can anybody just kind of jump on and be an extra before the wrap up happens? And if so, can they just reach out to you through your website and on your social media as well? Yeah,
tell them to. A lot of people hit me on IG and Facebook, just been blowing up. So
okay,
inbox.
All right, y'all might be able to get. So maybe y'all can get on and be an extra. All right, but be ready for him because he got something coming up right around the corner. So stay connected to Rip. Thank you so much, Rip. I really appreciate you for being here on the Christie Taylor Show. Excited about all the good things you're doing and just keeping that film grind going. Wow. Any last words before you go?
No last words. Just anybody's trying to do this, just keep your head up, keep going, and just don't never stop.
Never stop. Never give up. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Checking out the Christie Taylor Show. Up next, Tina Tilton's The Blend here inside the Taylor Tilton Hour.